They set out as a family. They would not arrive as one. In 1844, the Sagers joined a wagon train bound for Oregon, but the trail showed no mercy. Disease, death, and betrayal would scatter the family, leaving 7 children to fend for themselves and walk straight into a massacre. The Sager family began their journey west like many others, chasing a dream. Henry and Naomi Sager had heard stories of rich farmland in Oregon and a new life beyond the frontier. They loaded their wagons, gathered their 7 children, and joined a wagon train on the Oregon Trail. The journey was brutal from the start. Dust choked the air, food ran short, accidents were common. Naomi was pregnant when they left Missouri. She gave birth to a baby girl along the trail. They named her Henrietta. But just weeks later, tragedy struck. Henry Sager became violently ill, most likely from typhoid. He died along the Platte River and was buried in a shallow grave. Naomi, left with 7 children, including a newborn, pressed on. Her strength amazed the others in the wagon train. But the trail was unforgiving. Not long after her husband's death, Naomi herself fell ill. She too succumbed, leaving her children orphans in the middle of nowhere. The oldest, John, was just 14. The youngest, Henrietta, only weeks old. Members of the wagon train stepped in to help. The children were split between different families as the train moved westward, each trying to do what they could to keep them alive. When the train reached the Walla Walla Valley in what's now Washington State, the Sager children were taken in by Dr. Marcus Whitman and his wife Narcissa. The Whitmans were missionaries running a settlement called Wailatpu, where they worked to convert local Cayuse tribes to Christianity and offer aid to arriving settlers. To the Sager children, it seemed like safety at last. The Whitmans offered them a permanent home and eventually adopted them. The children took their new surname proudly and settled into life at the mission. But the peace wouldn't last. Relations between the Cayuse and the settlers had grown tense. The Whitmans, though well-intentioned, misunderstood Cayuse customs. And worse, measles, likely brought by the settlers, spread through the region, devastating the Cayuse while leaving most whites alive. The Cayuse saw this as a deliberate act, a form of biological warfare. And on November 29, 1847, they struck. The Whitman massacre began without warning. Marcus and Narcissa were among the first to be killed. 12 settlers in total were murdered that day. The mission was burned, the air filled with screams and smoke. The Sager children were caught in the middle. 3 of the boys, John, Francis, and little Henry, were killed in the violence. The remaining children, Catherine, Elizabeth, Matilda, and Henrietta, were taken captive and held for nearly a month. Eventually, a ransom was arranged. The Hudson's Bay Company negotiated their release, and the girls were returned to what was left of the settler community. But their family was gone, their home destroyed. The trail had given them nothing but hardship. Over time, the surviving Sager girls grew into adulthood. Catherine wrote about her family's ordeal, preserving the story for future generations. But the loss never left her. Today, the story of the Sager orphans is rarely told. Overshadowed by tales of pioneers and manifest destiny, their journey reminds us of the cost of the westward push, especially for the children caught in the wheels of history. From Missouri to Oregon, their story crossed rivers, mountains, and grave after grave. It began with hope and ended in fire. And yet somehow, the legacy of the Sager orphans endured, not as conquerors, but as survivors. Thank you for listening to Deserted Trails. If this story moved you, consider joining us again as we uncover more forgotten truths from the American frontier.